Tonight on The World According to Hazlitt, we examine the world of hatred. Good evening. Tonight on The World According to Hazlitt, we have a special correspondent getting first-hand opinions on the subject of hatred.
Later, she'll be joining us to discuss their responses, its relation to the popular short story On the Pleasure of Hating, and how it connects to The World According to Garp.
Now to our special correspondent, Andy, in the field.
Why do you think people fear others who are different?
Because they don't understand them.
Well, people generally have different views towards subjects and different ideologies, and when those come in contact with each other, people feel very strongly about their own opinions, and it causes disagreements and arguments.
I think it has to do with fear of the unknown, you know? Like, I think they're scared of not knowing what is different as opposed to the differences.
Because they don't understand them and they don't know what they're capable of.
It's nice to have you back on the show, Andy.
It's good to be back. From the interviews I conducted, there seemed to be a common theme of lack of understanding in the first question we asked.
Right, and that seems to be the driving force behind hatred.
Definitely. And also, I think, the unknown, and also how people act upon the lack of understanding. I think it's more important to realize how they act upon it than the actual uncertainty itself.
Right, and in the short story On the Pleasure of Hating, Hazlitt comments on how it's a natural human instinct to frighten others into conformity, and why do you think that is?
I think conformity and being similar to each other is easier to understand than the differences. And that also connects to the novel The World According to Garp, because there's a large theme of disabilities, and people with disabilities can't always conform to society standards, and I think that creates an aura of uncertainty.
Name one thing you hate and one thing that you believe is globally hated.
I don't like blind agreement, even though I do it.
I hate when it's too cold outside because I can't feel my hands. I think uncertainty is globally hated.
I hate butterflies, and I don't believe that there is a common issue that the entire world can agree to hate on.
Personally, I hate cats, because there's just not much to like about them. Globally, crying babies, because they're very annoying.
So for our next interview question, I thought it was very interesting that on a personal level, the hatred seemed to be for more insignificant things, such as like a butterfly or cats. And then on a global level, it seemed to be more well thought out, more in depth. But I also thought it was very interesting that one of our interviewees had said that nothing was globally hated, and I think I agree with that as well.
I think that's also interesting because nothing really is globally hated because of the different of opinions and cultures, but when people are forced to think about what they hate, it's a very individual question, and it doesn't really have to be well thought out because it doesn't relate to anyone but themselves.
And in the short story by William Hazlitt, he starts off his piece by talking about his hatred for a spider, which at first seems insignificant, but it's important that he does this in order to relate to his audience. And in this way, he appeals to their pathos by uniting them on this common ground and something that they can all agree to hate upon. So that later on, when he starts talking about more in-depth issues, they have a speaker that they can trust because they have this common ground.
Why do you think conflict is a necessary part of human nature?
Conflict is necessary because it breeds passion.
Because people like to prove themselves right.
Although these two interview responses may seem very different, they're actually interconnected because the passion stems from the desire to prove oneself right, which essentially is the basis for all conflict and hate.
To quote Hazlitt, "I see folly join with knavery, and together make up public spirit and public opinions." In this quotation, he's basically saying that in an argument, there always has to be one side or another. So in order to prove oneself right, you are forced to choose one of these sides.
Right, and these two sides don't necessarily have to be opposites, but they do have to have differing viewpoints in order to grow from the experience and to have a valid argument.
What do you think is the main source of conflict in most people's lives?
Themselves.
I think it's a difference in basic culture.
Stress, which can be thought of in through various topics, whether it be for a kid who's stressed about homework, or a parent who's stressed about their own kid and being successful and providing for them. I think stress generally fuels that.
Interestingly, someone said that the main source of conflict was within themselves, and I would wholeheartedly agree with that, because often people are just trying to conform with society and they don't know the best way to go about doing that. So that often presents multiple ideas about how to conform with society, and that'll definitely create conflict.
Adding on to that point, oftentimes people feel the need to compare themselves to others in their prosperity and their success, and in doing that, they feel worse about themselves and resent other people for their successes. And this is a major point that Hazlitt touches upon as well.
I think also differences in basic culture are the foundation for all hatred, whether it be in modern society or history itself.
I think Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Nothing has to happen that had to happen." I think it's a difference in basic culture